Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am so glad you are here. If you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so that you get notified every time I come out with new content. Today, I am going to talk about the number one biggest mistake that people make when they are grieving the loss of a loved one that holds them back from experiencing happiness in their grief. My name is Michelle Ellsworth, and I am an author, speaker, and coach. I help people who are going through trials, tragedies, and traumas. I help my clients who have been victims not adopt a victim mindset. And today we are going to talk about one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they are healing from massive trauma and trials and tragedy that holds them back from experiencing joy and happiness even while they are in the process of healing. Just a little bit about me and my backstory. My oldest son was in an accident 15 years ago. He was in a tragic accident that took his life. He fell from my second story window when he was 22 months old. His name is James, and he is absolutely the joy of my life. He is also the reason why I do these videos and why I show up here for you guys. I hope what I have here to say today is helpful for you in your journey through grief and healing. So I wanted to share actually a personal experience and an epiphany that I had of something that was truly holding me back from experiencing freedom from the trauma that I had experienced. My son's death anniversary is April 20th, so it was actually just a few days ago, and it has been 15 years, so it's been a really long time. It's always amazing to me how it doesn't matter how long it's been, there's new things that need to be seen, loved on, addressed, and healed. So I was actually in my bed and I was crying to my husband and I was apologizing. Something that I've done now for 15 years. I was sobbing and I just kept saying, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And I kept saying, I'm so sorry that I'm dragging you through this. I'm so sorry that you have to go through this with me. I'm so sorry that you have to deal with my pain and suffering. Now, my husband that I'm married to, he is not the father of my son that passed away. I went through a divorce after my son passed away. And my husband stopped me when I was apologizing. And he said, stop. What are you apologizing for? Are you apologizing because you love your son? Are you apologizing because you wonder what your life would be like if your son was still here? You're not doing anything wrong. And right then I started asking myself, why do I feel like I am doing something wrong because I miss my child? Why do I feel like I'm doing something wrong because I hurt and because I long and because I wonder what life would be like if my son was here? And there was this intense amount of guilt that I was feeling for hurting and for grieving. And I started becoming curious about why I would feel guilty for loving my child. And the next day, it was interesting because it was total flip-flop. The day before, I was totally crying, totally emotional. Now, the next day, I found myself, I was completely paralyzed. I couldn't do anything. I was laying in my bed. I was looking at the wall. I was trying to be productive. I was trying to at least enjoy being lazy for the day. I typically work all day long, and I just decided to take this day off and to give myself permission to not have to show up. Well, I ended up staring at a wall. I couldn't bring myself to even watch a movie. I couldn't bring myself to crochet. I couldn't bring myself to do anything. And as I was laying there, I texted my best friend. And my best friend, I told her what was going on, and she sent me a text. And it said, I want you to say these words to yourself. And in that text, it said, I am sorry for shaming you and guilting you. I am sorry for judging you for the way that you're showing up right now. I'm sorry that I am putting so much pressure on you to be happy. I give you permission to just feel it and to let the difficult come in. I know that when you're ready to come out of the hard and the darkness, we will be able to do that together because we've done it before. It's okay to let yourself feel right now. This is a judgment-free zone. And as I read this, and it had been 10 hours of complete paralyzation, as I read this permission to let go of the guilt and the shame, floodgates just opened. And again, I found myself crying. And it was such a relief to cry and to let it out and to just let myself purge this pain. And I crawled myself into the shower and I was letting the water beat down over my back as I was crying. And again, I got curious and I said, why do I feel guilt and shame about losing my child? Why do I feel guilty when I miss him, when I hurt, and I realized that I had an enormous amount of guilt and shame around grief, around just the simplicity of grieving. And so again, I got curious of where this came from. Well, the next day was my son's anniversary day, and I was surprisingly unemotional. I was happy. I was actually happy. And it was almost like I had gotten all of those emotions out the few days before. And then it just left space for me to be happy and to grieve my son in a loving and happy way. We ended up planting a garden for him in my front yard and did some symbolic things. We did some service, and it ended up being a really happy, productive day. And as I was downstairs, my mother-in-law, she's living with us, she just nonchalantly said, "You did so good yesterday." And right then, the light bulb went off in my head of where the guilt and shame was coming from. And the light bulb was that society teaches us that when we don't hurt, when we don't cry, when we don't feel, that means that we're doing good. When we are hurting or crying or longing or yearning or wishing or desiring or missing, that means we are doing bad. Now, my mother-in-law, she's like an angel. She's the sweetest thing in the world. And she didn't mean any ill intent, which most people in society who haven't experienced this kind of loss, they don't know. But we are conditioned in our grief to feeling like there is something wrong with us if we hurt, if we are missing or yearning. We are conditioned to thinking that those things make us broken or tell us that we don't have enough faith, or that we aren't praying hard enough, or that we're not trusting in God, or that there is something habitually still wrong with us, even if we're still hurting 15 years down the road. And I stopped in that moment and just said to her, I have decided to not label my grief. It is not good that I didn't cry, and it is not bad that I didn't cry yesterday. It is not good that I cried the other day, and it is not bad that I cried the other day. It is not good and it is not bad. It's just what is. It's just the way that my grief showed up that day. And I think that the temptation with grief and healing and supporting those who are grieving is that we are so tempted to label whether or not our grief is good or bad. We are so tempted to judging how we go through it instead of accepting. And the interesting thing is that I finally discovered was that I feel more pain when I feel shame and guilt about the pain. When I remove the shame and guilt, the pain subsides. And I discovered that in my grief, the pain is actually being intensified because I'm judging myself for the way I am experiencing it. I am shaming myself and guilting myself and allowing other people to shame and guilt me for the way I am grieving. And so the antidote to this is to set boundaries with people that you love who are well-meaning. Most people do not intentionally try to shame and guilt and judge and criticize, but become aware of when these messages are being conveyed to you so that you can set boundaries and then communicate those things. I decide that I am not going to label my grief. It's not good or bad. It's not good if I'm happy. It's not bad if I'm sad. It's just the way my grief is showing up right now. And that is what acceptance is. And when we move into acceptance with grief, that is when we become at peace with the grief. But you cannot move into acceptance with grief until you have removed the guilt and the shame and the judgment around it. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please like, love, comment, and share. And I would love to know your thoughts on guilt, judgment, shame, and criticism, what your experience has been in this, and I hope that this has been helpful. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe and that notification bell, and we will see you here next time. Have a great day.